So if you're navigating dietary restrictions and feeling like you've been left behind because of all the things you can't eat, listen on to discover how Margaret stopped feeling overwhelmed and resentful to actually enjoying cooking and feeling like she has so many possibilities, even with her gluten and dairy intolerances. So welcome to the podcast, Margaret. So cast your mind back to before you joined Joyful Cooking. So, what was your relationship with food, with cooking, and your dietary restrictions before we did started working together?
Um, a little bit, I think I was probably a little bit resentful about being the only one that was cooking.
I remember
Um,
that.
yes, and sometimes I still do have that. Um, and even though I'd sort of got a bit of I had felt like I had a bit of a grasp on getting around dietary requirements, sometimes they were a bit overwhelming. And I thought I
Yeah.
needed to, even though I probably, followed you for a long time, kind of, and I reckon that the first, you know, really big thing that tipped me over to you was that it was the magic sausage supper.
Yay, it's a
Yeah.
ticket
And I
meal.
knew, I just sort of thought, oh, okay. So, and I think even at that time you were giving sort of alternatives as well. Um, and there were too many, I felt like there was just too many ideas about what was good. And it was what was nutritionally best for you, or, that sort of thing. And I was really, and sometimes you do get caught up in that. But I have found, I think the most resistance came from when I initially sort of was asked to just drop a couple of these things out of my diet because I was really struggling with
So it's
menopause,
is it dairy? Was it dairy for you
dairy and wheat.
and wheat, right?
Yeah. And I think the biggest resistance came from my husband, like, oh, when can you stop doing this? And I'm just like, yeah, okay. Uh, but it has got easier in that way. And I just, like I cook for everybody. And if they want to add other things, they can. And which is, the way it should be anyway. And I think I just sort of got a sense that you simplified things a little bit better. And maybe that was what sort of helped a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you were feeling a bit overwhelmed, like, oh, like dairy and wheat, like they seem like such a big thing to remove from your diet, don't they?
They are, and I know, even if I inadvertently put them back in, like, so eating something that's got even just a small amount of that sort of stuff in it. I think I told you one time about wine. Didn't realize it was purified with lots of stuff. And
Well, it
then,
depends, yeah, sometimes.
yeah, and actually finding out that, even though I'm not vegan, that was the way you really needed to go to avoid that sort of stuff. Not that I drink it that much. I use it more in cooking. So,
Oh, right.
because I couldn't work out um,
You were reacting.
why I was reacting by using red wine in a casserole. And I'm thinking, why do I feel so crap? Because I haven't put anything in here that's not going to agree with me. And it was just by accident that I read the back of a wine bottle and I thought, okay, you know, so
They
that was
use
what,
dairy products to refine it, yeah.
yeah, or they sort of do an all-encompassing, some of them do an all-encompassing thing like fish or dairy or whatever they use to purify it. And I never even considered that that was what they did.
Yeah, right.
You do find out lots of things.
You do find out lots of things. Um, okay. And so what tipped you over? So it was a bit of you're feeling a bit resentful about cooking, but and you did have these dietary restrictions to navigate that your husband was not so happy about.
So
Yeah, he
what
wasn't
tipped
so
you over?
crazy about it.
Yeah, what tipped you over from thinking about joining Joyful Cooking to actually deciding to do it?
Because I was already working with you with NHC,
Yeah,
and I
great.
think I needed a little bit of, I needed to maybe put a little bit of fun, joy, whatever, back into the cooking area. And as I said, I followed you a lot for a long time. And I only came across you by accident because I was looking for something else, and I thought, oh, okay, yeah, and then just sort of started sort of noticing all sorts of things. And I think that was probably, I needed to improve my relationship with food. Um,
Yeah, right. And cooking was part of that as well.
it's got to be, it has to
Yeah.
be, and I just, yeah, I just felt like it was, time to sort of try. And if it didn't work, well, it didn't work. But as it's turned out, it's probably been more interesting, joyful, fun than I could have ever imagined, really.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me more
Yeah.
about what are the changes that you're noticing, Margaret?
I'm probably more willing to fail
Right. So there's less pressure to get it right.
because I know that I have, and I probably already had some of those skills before too, because I just didn't sort of didn't acknowledge them really, I guess. And I know that if something now is, a bit flat or whatever, I know I can fix that.
Yeah, great. So you have that confidence that you can adjust to make it taste good.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
look at you, Margaret. Amazing.
yeah. And I just sort of feel like and also it's just it is a lot more fun now. And I think I've even sort of turned somebody else into somebody who actually eats magic meals. So
Right, 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 right.
yeah, because I think he's my husband's a very plate driven person. Like things have to be on a plate or on a chopping board with cheese and biscuits type of thing.
Right, right. Okay, so
And
your
then
husband's come along for the journey and he's changing, like he's started to
sometimes
change.
he
Yeah,
does. Yeah,
yeah,
sometimes he does. Yeah, and that's good too. So and that makes it a little bit easier too, because sometimes I just go, like, we might have had our main meal, and I just say to him, what do you want to have? Like sometimes in the middle of summer when you don't feel like cooking anything.
yeah.
Um, and sometimes it can just be as simple as opening a big can of salmon or whatever, and we just put together a salad. And I don't dictate what he has to have. Like I sort of feel like, you're an adult, you can decide what you want on
Amazing.
yours.
So yeah, so he's actually prepared, like doing more of his, like to make the food what he wants it to be, and you're doing what you want, so everyone's happy.
That's right. And like I provide the sauces, like good old mayonnaise for him. It's not for me, it's not a big, mayonnaise is not a big thing for me. I'd rather just dress a salad with
Olive oil based.
balsamic or an olive
Yeah.
oil or any other kind of oil, because I've got lots of different sort of flavored oils as well, like,
Ah, yeah.
pecan, hazelnut, whatever I've got, and whatever just would seem to go with whatever I've got on the plate, sort of thing. Or my favorite, tahini and lemon.
Yeah, we love the tahini and lemon, don't we,
And
Margaret?
the maple syrup in it too, I think
Yeah, a bit
makes
of
it a
maple
heck of a
syrup.
lot more it makes it more approachable, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Great. So do you feel like like you're getting more variety, like and you're enjoying the food that you're eating more
Yes.
now? Yeah.
Yes, I think so. I think that, I was never afraid to put salad leaves on a plate. Um, my husband's a little bit averse to green stuff. You know, I don't know. I have been known to pull a bag of salad leaves out of the fridge that's got, like less than half a dozen leaves in it. And I'm just like, why did you just leave that?
Why
Oh,
did you put them back in
I had enough in my salad roll. And I'm just like, come
Mm.
on. Yeah. So those and I think for me, sometimes I really, that something green on the plate, for me is now become a little um, bit more of a habit, and it does feel a bit weird sometimes not having something green on the plate because I think it does cut through. You sort of get to appreciate how it can just feel like if you're serving a casserole or something like that, just serving it, even if it's serving it over shredded cabbage or something like that, sounds bizarre. I never would have thought about doing that for your joyful cooking.
Right. So yeah. So do you feel like you've expanded the amount of vegetables that you're eating, Margaret?
Uh, well, I probably eat more now,
Yeah. Yeah.
more vegetables, and actually, in some ways, sometimes I think I eat more vegetables to the detriment of eating the protein,
Right.
which is not always. But I do sort of at some point during the meal, I just go, oh, I've had enough of the protein. I think I want the
The
light
veggie.
green stuff here, or that just to finish off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing. Yay.
yeah,
And you're having more fun. Yay. So what's been
yes.
your favorite part about doing this work, Margaret?
Oh, look, I tell you, I would have to say it's the it's the community aspect of it. I did
Yeah, that's
write
one of my
down,
favorite parts too.
yeah, and I did write that down, and it was just the interaction between people who are elsewhere in Australia and elsewhere in the world. And there's lots of ideas and lots of humor and fun. And we don't take ourselves too seriously, especially with Emma.
Exactly.
Yes, and that's been good for, I think that has, not that it wasn't good before, but I think it adds a different sort of a thing because she's more prepared to not take herself too seriously sometimes.
Yeah, so for anyone listening, Emma's the community manager for Joyful Cooking, and she's really fun.
She is really fun and she makes it a lot of fun. Yeah. And she asks, like, yeah, she asks good questions too, like when you put something up, it's like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Right, right. So
Was
she's making you
something.
think as well, like so, but
Yeah. And the other day, I think I wrote something about, when we did the power plate or something. And I wrote how I'd learnt to overcome my fear of cooking a huge piece of meat. Like it was a huge piece
yeah.
of rump steak, like it's about 700 or 800 grams of rump steak. And when I went back and read it, because she asked me a question about it, and I went back and read it, and I thought, oh, okay, so when I wrote that, it sounded like the longer you cook something, the better it is. And that's not
All
really
right.
That's not really what I meant. What I meant was I was told by the producer, the more practice you have at cooking those things,
Ah, right, right.
the better you are at,
Doing
sort
it,
of
yeah.
judging the thing. And, they've also been, and that's also opened my eyes a bit too, buying it from somebody who actually produces it, is like, oh, so you've undercooked something, just chuck it back in the pan. The pan's
It's
still hot,
okay. Yeah, yeah.
chuck it back in the pan and, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that you've loved that community aspect. So what
Yeah.
surprised you most about being in Joyful Cooking, Margaret?
I think, um, maybe not so much for me. Well, maybe that I considered myself to be a fairly confident cook. But it helped to expand that a bit. But I think one of the surprising ones was some of the people that have joined it who are really inexperienced, what I would consider to be inexperienced cooks, and their willingness to just try something different and just to, get into the kitchen and just, like, what's the worst thing that can happen here? You might have to make toast. Yeah. And
Yeah,
also,
so that surprised you that you'd seen other people come in who have really little experience cooking, but then they're
mm,
actually able to take it and run with it and are getting great results.
and yeah, and I've just gone, and sometimes they've inspired me too, like
Yeah, like you're getting ideas from each other. Yeah, it's so
yeah,
cool.
I'm getting ideas from people who were, even though we talk about, we know our own taste buds, um, and what we like and what we don't like. It was sometimes I thought, oh, I'd never thought about doing that. And their willingness just to throw it in there and just go, well, let's see what happens. I was just like, yeah, that was a bit I think when you've cooked for a bit, I think sometimes you can have that fear that, oh, what happens if it doesn't work?
Yeah, the fear
And
of failure. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
food
And
combinations too that people come up with, like they're just, yeah, I just sort of think, oh, and probably previous to on that sort of thing, previous to this, I probably would not have thought about using pomegranates as much. Bit
all
obsessed with,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
you and me both. And it's pomegranate season.
It is, yeah, and it's just, yeah, and I find just they've surprised me a bit too about where I might use them, like over the top of a casserole because it cuts through that richness.
Yeah, because you're getting a little sweetness, bit of acid. Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah,
you're using new like expanding your repertoire of the ingredients you're using and you're using them in different ways.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I probably would have thought about um, using things like using some of the things that I use now. I don't think I probably would have thought about using them in the way that I do now, which has been
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
great. And so who would you recommend joyful cooking to, Margaret?
Oh, anybody who wants to have um, to get some more confidence in the kitchen, and
Yeah, right.
improve
So
their,
you can see that those newbie cooks, it's helpful.
yeah, and it's and to improve, like even if they've got a bit of skill, or they've have some knowledge, it it's also it can to improve that, and just being able to step into the kitchen and not feel um, daunted by it. Stepping into the kitchen and feeling like you've got a bit of freedom to do what you want to do. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, for anybody who's might be struggling a little bit, because even people who are confident cooks can struggle.
Yeah, well, I guess because the resentment can come up. Hey, like,
Yes, it does.
not that
And
you and I would
does.
know anything about that, Margaret. Yes.
No, we wouldn't know. But at least your husband knows how to cook. Mine, mine's the extent sometimes is baked beans and can we have egg and bacon? Knows how to cook egg and bacon, okay.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about like if someone has dietary um like restrictions like you do?
I think that sometimes when I've looked at something, I think, oh, I can't do that because, um, and I think you just trying to figure out how to sort of articulate this, that if you've got dietary restrictions, there is still possibility. There is still a lot of possibility about what you can have. And that was the big thing, I think, for me, is that instead of thinking about what I can't have or what I can't eat, turning it around and going, but yes, but what about all those things that I can have?
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when you do have some dietary restrictions, it can become, you can feel like that you can be left behind a bit. I had to
Right.
sort of, yeah, and often like you just sort of feel like, oh, I can't do that because it's just too hard to try and think how could I change this? How can I change this? And I think that you can, once you get into it, you can just go, okay, I can change that a bit because I,
Yeah.
there are ways around dietary restrictions. I'm thankfully not one of those people who have so many. I mean, I'm thankful that there's only two things that I don't, that I just don't eat,
Yeah.
because I know how reactive they are for me. Or two, not two things. That sounds like
Two
everything.
two categories of food.
Yeah, two categories of food. Yeah. Um, And, eh, there are other people who are much, have got more dietary restrictions than I have. And, you know, that's, but I think the frustration for me is not in my kitchen. It's when you go out and
Oh
you read
yeah.
something that's gluten free, if you're trying to order something that's gluten free, you have to ask the other question, because I think there's a natural tendency to say that, oh, this is gluten free. And then I just look at the list of, what's in it, and I just go, well, okay, it might suit one part of the dietary restriction there, but what about the dairy that's in there? How are you going to change
Mm,
that? Yeah. So
yeah.
I think if I could overcome that thing about when I go out, making better choices about what I eat, um,
Right.
or
So
what I can eat. Yeah,
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but
So
that
it's like you're
sounds fun.
feeling when you're cooking for yourself because you know how to you've switched that focus so you know how to adapt. So you feel that
Mm,
freedom, but it's still, yeah. Yes. And that, yeah, that's tricky, isn't it?
it can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And I don't, so we don't, I guess we don't eat out a lot, but I have sort of learnt that, when we do, I choose something that, you know, pretty basic,
Yeah.
which is
Because then
kind
you
of
can
defeats the purpose in a way. I sort
going
of feel like it defeats the purpose a bit, but I sort of stick to things like a good piece of steak,
yeah, because you
or something that I might not have necessarily cooked at home, like a nice piece of fish or something like that. Yeah, that
yeah.
would be, but it's still, sometimes it can still have, sometimes when the thing turns up on your table, you look at it and you go, okay, looks like it might have
It's a lot
something
of
there
butter there. Yeah, yeah, right.
that's not going to suit me. But anyway,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so you think joyful cooking is good for newbie cooks and then also for people that do have dietary
yeah,
restrictions. Yeah.
yeah, I
Amazing.
think so, because I think it just opens you. You stop thinking about, as I said, you stop thinking about the things that I can't have,
Yes.
and think
And,
about the
and
things
focus
that
on what the possibility is. Yeah.
yeah, and that was, I think there are possibilities there. Yeah, okay. Can't's not a great word to use though. It's not.
Doesn't feel
These are
good, does
things I don't have, learnt that somewhere. I don't know where.
it?
I
Amazing.
don't eat that. And when I'm cooking, and if I'm cooking for, like if I was cooking something that was not for me because it had things in it that were, so I can cook things that suit other people's dietary restriction, not dietary restrictions, dietary, not
Preferences.
non-restrictions, their
Yeah.
freedom, like if I'm making some muffins or something like that, if they were ham and cheese or something like that, maybe if they were years ago, I might have tested that before I had these restrictions. And now I just know, like, well, it's only been, there was something, I can't even remember what it was, but recently my son and I were making something and it just smelled so good. And I nearly licked the spoon and I thought, whoa, no, there's stuff in here
Not gonna
that's not
feel
gonna be
good, but
great
you
for
can still
me.
enjoy the smell. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can
cool.
still
So
enjoy
you
it.
have that, and you have that freedom to bake stuff with gluten for other people and
Hmm.
feel like you're not missing out. Yeah.
No, I never think I'm missing out on that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
there are some times when I wish that, I think if I could put one thing back into my diet, it would be cheese.
Yeah.
Maybe butter too.
Maybe
But
butter as well. No, I'd go cheese over butter.
yeah,
Yeah,
cheese, I think, yeah. I think because it has so many more possibilities about
yeah,
it. There's so many more varieties that you can use. And yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, amazing, Margaret. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with in joyful cooking. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and have a chat today.
Oh, it's all right. Pleasure.
Excellent.
So if you want to be like Margaret and stop feeling resentful and overwhelmed and actually feel like ease and joy and feel like you've opened to so many possibilities, and plus enjoy more delicious meals, even with your whatever your particular dietary requirements are, or even if you have no dietary requirements, if you just want to feel that ease, then I invite you to come and play with us in Joyful Cooking. So we enroll twice a year, and so to learn more, go to check out the link in the show notes, or if you just go to thestonesoup.com and click on the joyful under work with me, click on the joyful cooking tab and you'll be able to learn more there. Okay, have a beautiful week and I will catch you next week.